Yeah, it's later.
like all night through.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of that later.
I'll take it.
Yeah, no.
Take it. The alternative is something else. I will take it. Let me run past the door.
Yeah.
And then I'll reach through.
I don't know if you set up your own guitar and do that all yourself, but I have a friend who's the best at it. I just got my nylon string back from him. He rips stuff out of my
Pass along that information.
I will.
Because I need to take this to get it adjusted.
Oh yeah, he can do all that.
And I have other wood ones too that I would want to have with that. So yeah.
Great.
Do you know anything about what did he get besides doing adjustments and setups and stuff?
He can do a refret. He can.
Oh really? So
Yeah,
he's got all the tools. It's a luthier and all that good stuff. Okay.
I'll send you his. I'll
Please
send
do.
you his number.
Yep. I need that. I don't do that, and I need that desperately.
Because I've just got my nylon string back. It's beautiful.
Left yet, but, all right, let me just, before I forget.
Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, lie, lie.
Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to congregants, to friends, to guests, to family, to everyone joining us here in the sanctuary and everyone joining us online as we gather to welcome Shabbat tonight. We welcome to the Bima, representative from our board, Fran Martin. Wonderful to have you here and your partnership. Let's ensure that we are praying together as one community tonight. Please find someone new to greet, or if you're online, please introduce yourself in the chat, and you can find someone and wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
All right.
Shabbat Shalom. I sent you an email today about the community dinner center. Will you be there?
I will be there, but I think I want to be late. So I don't know if I can do the niggin at the end.
I mean, that's okay.
I don't know if that defeats the goal.
No, I mean,
But I can definitely
we can
put
do
it in there.
It's called a niggin? I like
Nigun. Yeah, Hebrew is nigun,
Yeah, yeah.
Yiddish is niggin. Yeah, it's all the same.
It is indeed.
You're right.
Shabbat Shalom, also tov.
What's going on, Kai? How you doing? What do you think?
It has different kind of designs and lines on it.
Yeah. All different kinds of stuff. Nice. Shabbat Shalom.
I just really want
Funky fresh.
You
Absolutely.
want to do it, Kai? All right. Remember what to do? Exactly.
So is he doing?
No, but he really wants to although I think Jan is their Jewish friend who knows very well and can help as well. So maybe they want
Music,
the
no music?
music. You should just take the lead. Yeah. We also got handheld one. You guys want to All right, perfect. And the cantor's going to take the lead. You guys will join in with him. Okay?
We're doing the short version of the lesson this morning.
The long one, actually.
Oh, okay.
Just do the first and then he can do the cantor's first. I'm going to get everyone back together.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are so excited that tomorrow morning, the man, the myth, the legend, Kai Mitchell Engar will become a bar mitzvah, will be called to the Torah, and we are so honored to have...
Can I say hi?
Sure, say hi.
Hi.
And we are so honored to have Kai with us tonight to lead us in our Shabbat blessing, along with his parents, Sarah Mitchell and Jessica Engar, and his siblings, Charlie and Enna. And we also say hi to Izzy, who's not here, but we know is here with us, hopefully singing the blessings from Utah. There we go. All right, we begin with our candle lighting on page 2. Amen.
Amen.
And we continue with the blessing over, we got it? Trick candles, sorry, Kai. Beautiful. And we continue with the blessing over the wine on page 5, our Kiddush.
This kid wine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית. כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת לחיים.
Take a drink?
Stuff not kid,
No. All right. Just juice.
that's parent stuff. Kid juice?
Just juice, not wine.
Good.
Mazel tov, Kai, and thank you to family friend Jan, who came all the way in from Park City, who's been such a Jewish mentor, I know, to Kai. And you'll get to use that more tomorrow, don't worry. Tomorrow. He's ready. He wants to lead the service tonight. And hopefully, I welcome everyone to come back tomorrow morning at 10:45, because Kai is going to lead us in an amazing service, and we are so excited. Just last night, one of our groups for our strategic plan initiative met. Some of you might be familiar that we're working on a strategic plan here at the congregation, always sort of thinking about what's next. And specifically, one of our groups within our strategic plan task force is charged with looking at the future, sort of a big topic. And what does the future hold for Judaism, for Philadelphia, for our synagogue? I began the meeting, as we do with almost all our meetings, with a word of Torah. And I lifted up, and I'll lift it up again tonight, actually, that the most misquoted line from the entire Torah is in this week's portion. Anyone have any idea the most misquoted line from the entire Torah? Anyone know? I'll give you a hint. It's really, the issue is that the line is always truncated. It's misquoted in that we never read the whole thing. What do you think, Tomas? Eye for an eye. Nope, that's in a couple weeks. What do you think, Danny? Nope, that's in still a few more weeks. Ben Sion, what do you think? Let my people go. You know that one, Kai? We're going to be talking about that tomorrow, right? Never once in the entire story of the Exodus does Moses simply just say, let my people go. Every single time, it's let my people go so that they may worship God, or so that we may hold a festival to God in the wilderness, or so that we may go out to the wilderness to proclaim God's holiness. Every time, there is a reason. It is not freedom for freedom's sake alone. And so we were thinking about this as our mission at Road of Shalom, and that we want to be here in the future, but that we are here not just for the sake of being here. We are here at Road of Shalom for what? Let my people go so that we may worship God, right? And ultimately, what does that mean for us? It means being a light unto the nations. It means, as we are celebrating the legacy, the life of Dr. Martin Luther King this weekend. Many on Monday will be volunteering, doing various projects. On Sunday at our Berkman McCusley Mood, I'm reminded of his famous line where he spoke of the arc of the moral universe, and that it eventually bends towards justice, but that we are a part of that work. And so as we think about that freedom that we enjoy, we recognize that freedom is not for freedom's sake alone, but is for a greater purpose, that we might work for justice in this world and be God's partner in that unfolding narrative of creation. And so we take a deep breath and release, turning from the noise of the week to the peace of Shabbat, a place and time in which we might better recognize our purpose in this world. We continue with our Kabbalat Shabbat singing, beginning with
Something new.
something new.
Okay. Jewish musician and composer Beth Schaefer gifted us very recently, within the last couple of weeks, although it was recorded about a month and a half ago in Atlanta, with the following. So 6 simple words in Hebrew. The first 3 you'll know very well. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Great. So that's the first part. That's the first 3 words. Oz
Oz,
Ruchenu
Ruchenu,
Po,
Po.
which means the source of our strength is there. The source of our strength is there. Oz Ruchenu Po.
Oz, Ruchenu, Po.
Good. So the first part goes like this. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. We're going to do that a few times. Let's go. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Okay, so this is the second part. Listen. Oz Ruchenu Po, Oz Ruchenu Po, Oz Ruchenu Po. Am Yisrael Chai. Oz Ruchenu Po, Oz Ruchenu Po, Oz Ruchenu Po. Am Yisrael Chai. 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 Oz Ruchenu Po. Oz Ruchenu Po. Oz Ruchenu Po. Oz Ruchenu Po. Am Yisrael Chai. Oz Ruchenu Po. Oz Ruchenu Po. Oz Ruchenu Po. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. May the people of Israel continue to live. We continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלכי השרת, מלכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלכי השרת, מלכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
With the joy that comes with Shabbat, we continue with Lechado D, pages 20 and 21, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתחילה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך בו מאורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise and face the entrance of the sanctuary as we symbolically welcome the Sabbath bride.
בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי, נקרא כלה, בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי ביקרה קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי ביקרה קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי ביקרה קלה בני שבת
Now that we are sufficiently warmed up, we are ready to pray. We continue on page 28 with our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
The top of page 31, we read together in the English. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Crater of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And on the middle of page 33, together, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמן.
The top of page 39. Together we read, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילו אוסף אלך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך באלים אדוני.
Pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you. We continue with tefillah on pages 46 and following. Please rise.
Yai lai 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 lai, ya la 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 lai lai lai. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la lai lai lai, 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 ya la lai lai lai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot,
ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל, אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Sunday will mark 100 days that the hostages have been captive in Gaza, and our prayers continue to turn to Israel as we turn to page 259 and join together in a prayer for Israel. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. We take moments now for silent prayer.
יהיו לרצון עם רפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי, Adonai Tzuri V'Goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my Rapha and my Redeemer.
ratzon im refi vehegyon livi lefanecha Adonai tzuri vegoali Adonai tzuri vegoali
In a moment, we will be on page 253 for the Misha Berach, our prayer for healing. Many of you know of our wonderful caring community program, Mitzvah Meals, which we just did on Wednesday night, where congregants come together in our Road of Shalom kitchen to cook food, which we deliver to our own community, to our own congregants who are in need. Oftentimes, maybe someone who's going through, maybe there's a medical procedure or something like that, and a chance to sort of show some love from our Road of Shalom community. And we're Jews, so we do it with food. I heard from a congregant just this morning, actually, who was a little reluctant to take a mitzvah meal at first. He said, Rabbi, we can afford it, we can order out. And I explained to him, I said, just let us do the mitzvah. Sometimes, stop, we want to do it, let us do it. And he said, okay. And after agreeing to the meal, he told me he was so touched. And again, it's the food, but it's not about the food, right? It was that visit. It was that visit from another congregant. It was that someone cared enough to check on their family, to see how they were doing. And then the next thing he said was, he was so inspired by that moment that he said, I want to cook. I want to come next week and I want to make meals. And there's something so beautiful. Our tradition says, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One mitzvah leads to another. And according to our tradition, Bikur Cholim, the mitzvah of visiting the sick, is one of the greatest mitzvahs we can do. It truly lifts up a person's spirit. And I pray that if you haven't, you'll all get a chance to help fulfill that mitzvah, and maybe as part of our congregation with mitzvah meals in cooking or delivering. If you are holding someone in your heart tonight in need of healing, mind, body, or spirit, I invite you online to write their names in the comments or here in the sanctuary to say their names aloud at this time.
Yisheberach Avoteinu Abraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim Yisheberach Avoteinu Abraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim El na refana la El na refana la El na refana la El na refana la Misheberach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim.
In talking with that same congregant whose child was doing much better after successful surgery, he told me how grateful he was and how sometimes we don't even recognize those miracles we have in our lives, including just our own health, that our bodies work in the way they're supposed to work. And so as we move from thoughts of healing to our Shehechianu prayer, we take moments of gratitude to just recognize those simple things or those simchas, those joyous moments in our lives for which we want to offer gratitude and thank God for giving us life, for sustaining us and enabling us to reach this moment in time. And if there's something special that you're celebrating, maybe this weekend or coming up, or something wonderful that happened this week, we'd love it if you'd share with the congregation. So what do we got? We got some simchas? Any good things? How about Kai? I see you back there. You moved to your grandparents. What are you doing tomorrow, Kai? Becoming a bar mitzvah, mazel tov. Mazel tov to you, Kai, to your parents, to Sarah and Jess, and really to all your family, everyone that's come in to visit. We're so excited to celebrate with you. Ben. Wonderful. Mazel tov, Emily. It's so exciting. Oh, really exciting for you. What else? What else are we celebrating? Yeah, Jan. Volunteering for the Sundance Film Festival. That's amazing. I guess that's what you can do if you live in Utah, right? That's pretty cool. Wow, that's really exciting. What else? What else? Ben Sion.
I found a bracelet I lost for many years. So here's the backstory. Jane and I recently moved, and our apartment's full of boxes. So, Rabbi Kaner, I want to is there a barucha for finding a lost item, or being surprised, or having good mazel? Is there a special barucha?
I think the Shechianu is probably the blessing for that. Wow. Well, congratulations on your move and finally unpacking and finding that beautiful lost bracelet. That's really special. What else? What else? Anyone else celebrating anything? All right. Yeah, Danny. Awesome. Joining the Philadelphia Freedom Band, a queer band here in our city. Love it. Oh, fantastic. Bassoon. Wonderful. Imagine they need some bassoonists. You know, not a lot of them out there.
It's a serious instrument.
Well, for all of these blessings and so many more, we join together in gratitude. Page 344 if you need the words.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higianu lazman
One of the joys of my job is I get to work with our young people, especially our bar, bat mitzvah, b'nai mitzvah students on their Devar Torah, what they're going to talk about in the portion. And I encourage you to come tomorrow morning. Kai has a beautiful, actually illustrated Devar Torah, and you can learn all about some of the plagues and Moses and Pharaoh and all that stuff as he's going to teach us. But I want to mention actually the following week, I was working with a student who's coming up for the following week, and in her portion, she wanted to focus on the idea of God hardening Pharaoh's heart. And she rightfully asked a very challenging question, which I think many of us probably have. She said, if God hardened Pharaoh's heart so that Pharaoh would be forced to say no, that the Israelites cannot go free, but then God punishes Pharaoh for not letting the Israelites go free because God hardened Pharaoh's heart so Pharaoh couldn't do it, that doesn't exactly seem fair. And in the words of this very wise student, it seems like God's a jerk. Might be the first time someone said that from this bima. But she's kind of right. And ultimately, we talked a lot more about this, and we looked at some deeper ideas like the authorship of the Torah and their perception of God at that time versus our perception of God in this age, and really, really good stuff. And I won't, and how we struggle as Jews, and we're challenged with this, and it was really good stuff. But I won't go into too much more detail. Come a week from Saturday to hear that one too. But I do want to delve a little bit more into this idea of hardening our hearts, and perhaps less about the ancient Pharaoh and more about us in our own lives. It's interesting that, first of all, we often think of this phrase as, and rightfully so, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. However, in fact, when we look closely at the text, we actually see that there's three sort of different forms of the verb. The first time it's quite active. God hardened Pharaoh's heart. But then it actually moves to a more reflexive form, and it says Pharaoh hardened his own heart. And then we also find it sometimes in the passive where it says Pharaoh's heart was hardened somehow. We don't know. So I've been thinking about this, and I think as we think about in our own time, when we can sometimes become hard in our hearts, when we sometimes lose perhaps that compassion, sometimes it's because of external forces. Just like with Pharaoh and God, there are things that harden our hearts, painful events, trauma, and this is natural. But then sometimes we harden our own hearts, just like Pharaoh did. And I think sometimes it's maybe a coping mechanism. It's a way to protect ourselves. Maybe it's a way to deal with some painful truths that sometimes come out of a cognitive dissonance, where we're seeing something that doesn't fully align with our values, and the only way we can sort of deal with it is to harden those hearts. And then sometimes, just like with Pharaoh, our hearts are hardened without an explanation, without a subject, without a cause, and we just don't know what to do. In addition, not to get too dorky in the grammar, we often translate it in English as just harden. However, they actually use three different verbs in Hebrew to all mean harden, and each of those verbs, I think, tells a little bit of a different story as we think about this. The first one is interesting. It's the root kaf vet dalet, kabed, which can mean to make heavy or weighty, to become stubborn, but also, and perhaps its most common usage, means to honor. To honor. The primary meaning of this root, say our commentators, as it's used in like the Ten Commandments to honor your parents. And the way the commentators see this fitting in hardening Pharaoh's heart is they say that it can be read as God honoring Pharaoh's own innate will by not imposing any external restraint on it. In some ways, this answers that first question. Maybe it helps us. God's not so much of a jerk, perhaps. But this idea, I thought this was very interesting, of not imposing external restraint on it. And when I think about that in our own lives, I think about the fact that perhaps we sometimes do this, and maybe it's not in such an honoring way, and that maybe sometimes we fail to put any external forces on our own knowledge. We don't look past our own bubbles. We know on social media with the algorithms, we only see the same people. Maybe we only watch the same media that reinforces our views, and perhaps we only talk with those that we agree. We fail to honor those external voices. The second verb that's used is kashe. Kashe, kuf shin he, often is translated to be make difficult, obstinate, or inflexible. It's interesting that this is the same language that's actually used about the Israelite people when they're in the desert, right? They've just gone through this miracle of the Exodus of Egypt, and the first thing they do is they turn to idolatry, right? They've just witnessed that there is one God in heaven and earth who creates everything, who's amazing, who does miracles, and yet they still turn to these idols because they're unable to truly turn. And actually, the word that's used about the people in that moment is kashe oref, stiff-necked, right? That they literally won't turn their heads to see something else, unwilling to change their point of view, unwilling to perhaps accept that maybe sometimes we're wrong, and that's okay. It makes me think of the famous poem by the Israeli author Yehuda Amichai, some of you may know, The Place Where We Are Right. Amichai writes, "From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow in the spring. The place where we are right is hard and trampled, like a yard. But doubts and loves dig up the world, like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood." The third verb, chazak, chet zayin kuf, means to stiffen or to strengthen. We think about this word when we finish a book of Torah. It's usually in a very positive way. We say, chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. May we strengthen one another. May we be strengthened. May we build each other up, right? This was chazak v'amatz, be strong and have courage, was the words that Moses said to Joshua before entering the land. This opportunity to build up. And I was thinking about this as well, and how does this relate to hardening our heart? And I think this is literally building those walls around our heart, literally strengthening those walls. And I was actually talking with Cantor Hyman about this, and he was saying, what are those walls that we hide behind? What are those walls that we put up when we harden our hearts? Maybe it's a wall of anonymity on a keyboard that the internet provides. But ultimately, what those walls do is they prevent us from being vulnerable. Now, I think this idea, sort of a little amorphous, of hardening our hearts can apply to so much in this world. We see it in our relationships with loved ones. We see it in political discourse and the partisan divide in America. And of course, we've seen this perhaps more striking than anything in this most recent war in Gaza. I believe especially now more than ever, we, and really everyone in this world and everyone who's commenting on this war, has to resist the urge to harden our hearts and dehumanize others. The British historian Simon Montefiore recently wrote in The Atlantic, and I'll say, as far as media goes, I've been really enjoying The Atlantic as I feel like offering me different perspectives, which I've appreciated. He wrote in The Atlantic about the effect of calling all Israelis settler colonialists, or similar sort of really pretty nasty language, in my opinion. And I'll quote, he said, "The decolonization narrative has dehumanized Israelis to the extent that otherwise rational people are able to excuse, deny, or support barbarity." When we deny the humanity in others, when we label little kids as settler colonialists that are fair targets, we dehumanize them. And then we look to horrors like October 7th without the pain that we should see. And similarly, when we equate all Palestinians with terrorists, when we call them animals, as sadly some very far-right extremists in the Israeli government have done, we also dehumanize them. And that is not going to help us in any sort of future peace plan that, God willing, we will have one day when those hostages are returned. So what is the answer to this natural hardening of our hearts that we so often do? We have to open our hearts. We actually read in Deuteronomy 30, in Parshat Nitzavim, the same Torah portion that we read on Yom Kippur, right? One of the most powerful portions in our tradition that reminds us that God sets before us life and death, blessing and curse, reminds us to choose life. We read in Deuteronomy 30, Umol Adonai Elohecha et levavcha ve'et levav zarecha. Then your God Adonai will open up your hearts and the hearts of your offspring to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, in order that you may live. But what's interesting is the Hebrew word that's used here. I don't know if you caught it. Umal Adonai. It's actually not to open. This is sort of the translation, but it's actually to circumcise your heart. Sort of an interesting one, right? Circumcise your heart. I think this is really used on purpose. And I think the text is using this word to convey perhaps two ideas. The first is just a very tangible metaphor, right, of cutting away that hardened flesh, right, around our hearts that'll enable us to perhaps feel the pain of the other, and that'll ultimately enable us to love God, as it says in the text, by seeing the divine, seeing God in the other. But circumcision, also called brit milah in Hebrew, right? The brit, the covenant of milah, circumcision, is a symbol of covenant, of partnership. Opening our hearts to others is that act of seeing the divine, seeing God's face in other people. It's a recognition, that covenant that we have with God, which says that we must understand that all people are created b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image, and that we as Jews, to be in partnership with God, have an obligation to lift up that dignity and that divinity. So how do we do it? Well, I want to look back at those three verbs, and maybe that gives us a clue. The first, kaved, to honor, right? We read in Pirkei Avot, Ben Zoma says, Ezehu mechubad, who is the one who is honored? And he answers, the person who honors all of creation. When we honor others' life experiences by listening to them, by being open to different opinions that might be outside our own comfort zones, we open our hearts. The second, kasheh, stiff-necked. If we are able to relax those necks, if we are able to turn our heads and literally look another person in the eye and not turn away from those difficult conversations or difficult perspectives that might not align with us, we might again open our hearts. And the third, chazak, to strengthen. Again, Ben Zoma in Pirkei Avot famously says, Ezehu gibor, who is mighty, who is strong, who is the warrior? Hakovesh et yitzro, the one who is able to control, to subdue his inclination. True strength does not come from being able to shout the loudest, but rather from controlling our emotions enough to be present, to be able to listen. To have real strength is to have the strength to be able to understand someone else's perspective. Self-described researcher and storyteller Brene Brown, one of my favorites, sums this up quite perfectly. She writes, humiliation and dehumanization are not accountability or social justice tools. They're emotional offloading at the best and emotional self-indulgent at the worst. And if our faith asks us to find the face of God in everyone we meet, that should include the politicians, media, and strangers on Twitter for whom we most violently disagree. She concludes saying, when we desecrate their divinity, we desecrate our own, and we betray our humanity. This Shabbat and beyond, may we have the courage and the strength to not harden our hearts, and instead to open, to literally circumcise our hearts, that we might be open to seeing God's face, God's divinity in all people. Shabbat Shalom. Continue in our service on page 282, followed by 287, as we continue with Aleinu. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This week, our congregation observes Yahrzeit for William Abramson, Leah W. Abramson, Betty Appel, Nathan Orritt, Aaron Backrack, Shirley Benkovsky, Ann Barmash, Sarah Beck, Albert Benderson, Edward Blank, Charles X. Block, Bertram Blumenthal, Carrie Blumenthal, Jacob Brandis, Maurice Brown, Herbert C. Bushkoff, Esther Cohen, Ray Cohen, Leonard L. Cheskoff, Eleanor Braun Danaher, John C. Danaher, Kyung-Ju Lee Desjardins, Bernard Fink, Harriet Finn, Naomi Fishman, Reuben A. Frank, Albert Frank, Teresa Breyer Garfinkel, Bertha Gerschel, Tilly Locke Glass, Louis Joseph Goffman, Nell Virginia Labe Goldbaum, Selena Goldsmith, Max Goldstein, Harry Goodman, Ruth Gorchov, Alice Smukler-Gooley, William Gratz, Mildred Landy Green, Theodore Greenwald, Jay Groden, Ruth Hirsch, Hannah Hoffman, Seth J. Jamison, Bertram M. Carfunkel, Bessie Claster Kaufman, Joseph Koo, Valentine Levi, Julius C. Levi, Sarah Levine, Herman Levine, Belle Levinson, Jenny Levy, Lillian K. Lovenstein, Scott Lustig, Cecilia Magaziner, Linda Weil Mansbach, Abraham Marimore, Rosemary McJury, Zippa Meseroff, Esther Miller, Iris Seufer Miller, Mitzi Middleman, Sidney Nullman, Benjamin K. Nussbaum, Paul Picton, Jack N. Pollock Jr., Yetta Reber, Matilda Rudo, Louis Zablosky, David Selesky, Harriet Rosewater Sachs, Edward Schechter, Milton S. Selig, Francis S. Shear, Mark Shevlin, Esther Silverman, Flora Silvernail, Sidney Simons, Leon Richard Smith, Leslie Squires, Reva Stanley, Philip Sterling, May Stiffman, Joseph Strauss Jr., Ruth Sussel, Samuel Tassman, Helen Dreyfus Teller, Shorley Trubman, Esther E. Vendig, Alan Waldman, Etta Wallerstein, William Walther, Fanny Rosenthal Weinberg, Shirley Fox Weinstein, Ida Jaffe Weissman, H. Norman Weiss, Edward Weiss, Ruth Shaw Wheatcroft, Samuel Will, Rosalind Wilner, Carrie Wise, Joseph S. Wohl, Isaac Wolf, Pauline Binswanger Wolf. We add the names of those who have been taken from our midst but not from our hearts in these most recent days for whom we are observing Shaloshim, the 30 days of mourning. Janet Benish, Mary Jane Eisenberg, Merton Hedson, Marion Walgen. If you are observing Yahrzeit or Shaloshim for a loved one whose name was not mentioned, I invite you to write their names in the chat or to speak their names aloud at this time. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing. We turn to page 294 and rise as a community for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, bi'amad divrach ertei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon, v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam omei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shmei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'miran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace and comfort to us all, and let us say, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
It's my honor to welcome Fran Martin for some announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
How lovely it is to celebrate Shabbat together. Coming up this week on Tuesday night is our first annual Community Building Summit. If you're moved by Rabbi's words, if you want to help strengthen our own community of caring, please sign up as indicated on page 7 and join us for what I hope is an important discussion of ways to show up for each other that are so essential these days, now more than ever. Then, on Sunday, January 21st, you're welcome to join us for brunch and conversation with Sigal Kanatopsky, Northeast Regional Director of the Jewish Agency for Israel. Kanatopsky, the first Ethiopian Jew to serve in this capacity, will share her compelling story and speak about Israel's Ethiopian Jewish community. This event is part of Israel Connector's speaker series. And that's not all. Following that, on Wednesday, January 24th, Congressman Jamie Raskin, yes, Congressman Jamie Raskin, a constitutional scholar, will share his perspective on the role of the Constitution in response to defining issues of the day, particularly around gun control and violence. If you're new to Road of Shalom, a special welcome to you. Please meet our lovely congregant, Heshi Zinman, who's waving at the back of the sanctuary to learn more following this service. Back to you.
Thank you, Fran.
We end in words of blessing.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless us and keep us.
Ya'er Adonai panav eilecha v'chuneka.
May God's light shine upon us, and may God be gracious to us.
Yisa Adonai panav eilecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May we feel God's presence within us always and find God's presence in others, and may we find peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
From the place of always right. No, where's Kim going?
That's it.
That's so awful.
Well, amazing, as always.
Sermon is so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad that the music is not highly complicated.
I wanted about another 3 hours to work on it.
Yeah, oh, I know.
I ended up making 2 visits.